people that waited in line just to share this experience of Venom, Candyman, Night of the Living Dead, The Rock, Final Destination. But I want you to know you are now entering the
Cinema
Chop Shop with a top and the pop boom boom bop.
The Cinema Chop Shop.
What's going on, everybody? It's David from the 80s, and you are now entering the Cinema Chop Shop, so park your ass right there. And while you're there, don't forget to hit the like, the share, and the subscribe button. And today, we're here to review 28 Years Later. Now, this is the third film in the franchise, and a lot of people were skeptical about how they were going to go about doing this film. And a lot of people were upset because it's not picking up right after 28 weeks later. But I am here to report that I think they did a fantastic job with this film. Now, the film follows what happened in the world years down the line. We follow some new characters, and we deal with the trauma and the things that they have to go through. Now, quick synopsis. There's a young man and his father living on an island off the coast of Europe, right? I feel like it's like Ireland or something. And what ends up happening is it's like we go back to kind of like tribalistic rituals. It's like a rite of passage. The young man has to go onto the mainland with all the fucking zombies, and he has to kill a zombie in order to be kind of like considered a man. And I think that was pretty cool. So when they go onto the mainland, you know, things happen, and they end up being there a lot longer than they're supposed to. So there's also another storyline wrapped up in this movie with dealing with the young man's mother, which I thought was a pretty decent way to go about it. And I don't want to give away too much more after that. But honestly, I think that the young man, the lead in this movie, Spike, fantastic job. I mean, you don't really watch too many movies with a young lead. And me personally, like, I'm not like a huge fan of like young leads, but this young lead really did an amazing job. His father came off as a complete, utter badass, dope character. Mother, amazing job. I mean, let's just put it on the table. Every person that acted in this movie did a fantastic job. Also, we get the idea of how this disease was isolated in hopes that it would die, and instead of dying, it ended up, like diseases and other things in this world, ended up mutating and causing bigger problems, right? And honestly, I will say that this was kind of like a pro and a con for me, because I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that there are kind of like superpowered infected, right? They're called alphas. And if you guys have seen Army of the Dead, the one that came on Netflix, the one that's directed by Zack Snyder, it's a kind of a similar concept to that. There's a couple of ideas and concepts in this movie to me that kind of borrow from that movie. And I mean, it's not a bad thing, but at the same time, it's something that we've seen before, so it's not really like completely 100% original. There's another idea that's borrowed in this movie that leaves you kind of questioning, eyebrow raising. But let's go ahead and get into the pros, shall we? Pros of the movie. There is the way that it's filmed, fantastic job. The song that's incorporated in that first trailer, Boots, that's incorporated into the film fantastically. It comes off as very menacing, very haunting, very like it just kind of gives you the chills, right? The fact that this movie was filmed with freaking iPhones is also mind-blowing, because to think that most movies need like those really big rigs in order to make a fantastic looking film, like that's out of the fucking window. They made a full-length feature film with cell phones and I am here for it, there are some characters in the, there's like one character in the movie that I really enjoyed, and he doesn't have like a long live role in this movie, which is kind of disappointing because the interaction between that character and the main character was really interesting. Um, I think just the relationships with all the characters were really interesting. They did a really good job at trying to uh, figure out this movie, and they did a really good job at telling a story with this movie. And it's kind of crazy because you went away from the story that was being told in 28 weeks later, and we're not following the same characters or whatever. And I don't know. Like I said, I think they did a really good job at stepping away from that story and then retelling another story. Simply because it's been too much time has passed. Like way too much time has passed. And I think that the smartest way to go would be going years down the line versus weeks down the line. There's also some moments in the movie where they use like it's kind of like night vision. It's like some red night vision, and the way that's incorporated into the film, that also looks kind of crazy looking. That was pretty dope. I like the way they did that. Let's see. The cinematic moments, the overhead shots, the big landscape settings, like the landscape shots and things like that, done really fantastically. The tension in this movie done fantastic. The character development in this movie done fantastically. There's only two big gripes that I have with this movie. Oh yeah, there's also like a little bit of comic relief in this movie, and it's done tastefully. It's not overdone. It's not overbearing. It's not annoying, which is also a good thing because I hate when you have a serious movie that's just like overbearing or overrun with comedy. There are some aspects of the storyline which are pretty predictable, and because it makes it really predictable, and there was also a problem that could have been solved, but there's a reason. There's always the skepticalness that we have about how this problem could have been prevented, but it was needed in order to develop this young man's character, because the character goes through a dramatic development during the story. He starts off one way and he ends on another way, and I think that it's done realistically. It's not one of those like all of a sudden this kid was just born a badass. It really had to go through the runs and the trials and tribulations in order to be the person that he is by the end of the film. And there's also another. So let's go into some of the gripes. The gripes that I have is basically about something that happens at the beginning of the movie. So at the beginning of the movie, we're kind of like introduced to a person, and you wonder what role this person plays in the story, right? And it's not until the end of the movie that you find out the role that this person plays in the story. But it's not significant to this story. It's more so significant to the next story. So it makes you, because this movie is a part of a new trilogy, and it makes you just wonder, well, why didn't you just tell this story in the next movie versus telling me this now? Like, you kind of wasted 5 minutes of my time telling me this story for something that didn't matter until we got to the end of the movie. So there's that. Next item of business is the actual ending. I have a theory about the way the movie ended. It comes off as very cheesy. It comes off as very corny. It comes off as very non-believable. And I think there's a reason for that. And I guess it'll confirm it in the next movie if it happens. But it kind of goes off heel, and it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit in with the rest of the movie, and it has to be explained in the next movie, and there has to be something coming from this in the next movie, because if not, and this turns out to be exactly what it is, then the believability of this movie takes a hit, because yeah, like you played this movie really well. You played it close to the heart. You told a good story. You made it very believable. And then you have this one scene in the movie that kind of like takes you out of it, because you're like, okay, now you're just being completely fucking ridiculous. Like, are we telling a real cohesive story? Or are you trying to be funny? And again, it's kind of like eyebrow raising. But again, I got to see what happens in the next movie. I am under the impression that possibly things might not be what they seem. Maybe I'll do a discussion video with Del Boy from Movie Match, because he watched this and he didn't like this movie as much as I did. I think he gave it like a C or some shit, and I think that this movie is like I would give this movie a B plus, right? I think this is a very B plus movie. It would have been an A if that last scene kind of didn't play out the way that it did. But I will say this: if the next movie, if what I think happens, then I think that there's a good chance that I would probably give this movie an A. So let's see what happens in the next movie. But for now, I'm standing with a grade of a B plus. I think everybody does a fantastic job in this movie. The filming of this movie was great. The cinematography was great, especially for using cell phones and the rigs that they created with the cell phones. Also, if you have young children, you might want to fucking not take them to see this movie. There's a lot of male nudity in this damn movie, and that big Great Khali looking motherfucker, that shit is wild. You might want to hide your kids, hide your wives. You know, they out here doing some foul shit tonight. But anyway, that's all I got. Let me know if you agree or disagree, whatever the case may be. Drop it in the comment section down below. And you are now exiting the Cinema Chop Shop. Hope you guys having a great day, and adios, homies.
I want to play a game. Subscribe now. The choice is yours. You're now exiting the Cinema Chop.